When we ended our last video, we were talking about breakpoints, and that when we develop in Bootstrap, we will be developing from mobile up. We're going to develop everything at the smallest version first, and then as it gets bigger, we will change the design to fit the larger screen. So in order for that to work, we have to talk about the Bootstrap grid. The Bootstrap grid is a series of classes that design us to create a flexible grid that changes depending on the size of the viewport. A couple things, classes that we need to be able to use are, we have to use containers. Containers are wrapped around any kind of Bootstrap grid. They give us some margins and some centering. Then we have to have rows. We can have as many rows as we want. And within each row, we get 12 columns. And what we can do is we can take each element and decide in each size how many columns we want that to take up in that row. And that takes us to the column classes then. I can apply multiple column classes to a single element, and that's really what gives us our responsive layouts. For example, if I take a div and I give it col-12, that means it's going to take up 12 of the 12 available columns. If I write col-md-6, that means in a medium display, it's going to only take up 6 columns. So at its default display or in mobile display, we said it was going to take up 12, and then once it gets to a medium display, that gets cut to 6. Again, at the bottom here, we're talking about the fact that the default layout is going to be mobile, and then we're going to change that as we get larger and the layout does not work as well. So here's an example of the Bootstrap grid. And you'll see that I've got a div class container, and inside of that, I've got a row. And then inside of that row, I have 3 other divs, section 1, section 2, and section 3. Each one of those has col-12 applied to them. And that's the default size, the extra small size, the mobile size. And what we're saying is that each of these divs is going to take up all 12 columns in the row at that size. And you'll see down here, that's what's happening. Then I'm going to leave col-SM, so the small version. I want to look just like the extra small version, so I don't write anything. And then we come over here and you'll see that I do col-md-3, and that says once we reach the medium display, we're going to change this. So now this section 1, instead of taking up 12 columns, is going to take up 3 columns. And section 2 is going to take up 4 columns. And section 3 is going to take up 3 columns. And so instead of being stacked vertically like this at 12, 12, and 12, they end up getting stacked horizontally in their row at 3 columns, 4 columns, and 3 columns again. Let's take a look at this in some actual code. And so this is us at our maximum, or our extra large size. So again, we're taking up 3, 4, and 3. And then we shrink that down to our large size, still doing the same. We shrink that down to our medium size, still doing the same. And now we go to the small size, and you'll see now they start to stack because they're each taking 12 columns of their row. And then if I go down to the extra small size, you'll see that they're also still taking 12 columns. So this would be our mobile view, larger mobile view. This would be our tablets, our laptops, and our desktop displays. That's how the grid works for us. Be sure to tune into the next video, which is going to talk about some built-in concepts in terms of colors and coloring inside of a Bootstrap website.